Hey there, frugal foodies. Welcome back to my channel where I explore delicious food that doesn't cost a lot of money. Today, I have a special treat for you, an adventure into the realm of homemade Asian dishes that are not only more affordable than takeout, but just as delicious. Today, I'm making a sesame stir fry that includes a sauce that you're going to want to put on everything. You can use it for any kind of meat you like, but today I'll use it on pork and also tofu. For my second meal, I'm making an Asian dish that is not only budget friendly, but it's perfect for the hot summer weather and anyone eating low carb. These recipes will make you question ever ordering takeout again, so grab your notepad and let's embark on this delicious journey together. But before we begin, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, MSMK Pro Cookware. I just received this 7-piece non-stick frying pan set and I couldn't be more excited. First of all, I was thrilled that a non-stick wok was included in the set because I've been needing a new one. I do make a lot of stir fries and this is going to come in handy for those. I love the fact that all of these are coated with a triple layer that includes a tough titanium ceramic diamond compound. They're also USA and GRE TUV approved. They're PFOA free with no nickel, lead, or any other heavy metals. Now that's a lot of jargon, all to say these pans are made with safe materials. There's another feature that I really like about these pans, and that's the handles. You'll notice these are made of a different material than some of the ones that you find in the stores. These are the kind that pro chefs use because you can put these in the oven. This is so important if you're making steaks or any other cut of meat that you want to have a nice sear on before you put in the oven. The same goes with salmon. The best way to cook that is to sear it first and then finish in the oven so that it's perfectly cooked on the inside. I feel like this 7-piece set is perfect because you pretty much have every size of pan that you need for cooking in the kitchen, and I'm excited to put these to the test. So let's get started with my first recipe. For my first recipe, I'm making a sesame stir fry. I'm going to be using pork loin, which is an inexpensive cut of pork for this recipe, but you can substitute any protein here like chicken, beef, or tofu. I picked up this pork from H Mart, which is a Korean grocery store near me. They have a large variety of meats that are already prepared and ready to be cooked. Like most convenience foods, it does cost a lot more than if you buy it and cut it up yourself, but I do like the fact that that's an option. I think we all have times in our lives where it's worth it to pay more and it's still much cheaper than takeout. There are 2 parts to this recipe. The first thing we're going to do is create a breading for our stir fry, and then we're going to create a sauce for the breading. We need 2 eggs, a half cup of flour, and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. I'm also going to season the flour with a little bit of paprika and garlic powder. I'll put the recipe for you in the description area. Either pork chops or pork tenderloin will work best and be the most tender for this stir fry, but if you buy them in the whole pieces, just put it in the freezer for a little while until it gets stiff, and then you can more easily cut it up into smaller pieces. I looked at Walmart and I noticed that right now pork chops are going between about $4 and $5 a pound, and they would be much less expensive on sale. I think you would be surprised at how many servings you would get out of just 1 pound. I'll add some salt and pepper, and it looks like I ran out of paprika in my little shaker, so I had to get some more out of my pantry. You're just seasoning this as you normally would for any breading that you use with meat or chicken. Before I run my pork through here, I want to dredge a few pieces of tofu, and this will be my lunch today. I cut the tofu in squares and then patted it as dry as I possibly could. I'm just using a firm tofu here. Probably would be better with an extra firm, but that's okay. If you can't afford meat, tofu is a great option, and it's packed full of protein. I picked this block up for about $1.79. Both of my sons are huge meat eaters, but they grew up on tofu and they love it. Once I finished the tofu, then I started dredging the pork, and I may need to cut some of these into smaller pieces. I'll cook my pork in a hot pan for just 3 to 4 minutes, and then it should be done. Obviously, if you overcook pork, it's going to be tough, so I want to try to make sure that I don't do that. I turn them over after a couple minutes so that they would get crispy on both sides. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could add more oil and then just simply deep fry these, but I prefer to do mine this way. I checked them to make sure that they were done, and they were perfect. They were moist but no longer pink, and they were nice and crispy on the outside. And my pan cleaned up nicely afterwards. Next, I thought I would try out my new wok for the tofu pieces. One of the reasons for using this dredge for the proteins is that it's going to give something for all of that delicious sauce to stick to. This could be served with some rice, but really you could serve it along with noodles or really anything that you want. Maybe even some greens if you're trying to go low carb, but I love the way that this coating turned out. Now that our pork and tofu are done, I'll make the sauce. I was a little apprehensive about the sauce recipe simply because it has a lot of ingredients. However, I do think that you'll probably already have most of these ingredients in your pantry, and as usual, I'll have some modifications for you. The original recipe calls for 2 cloves of diced garlic, which of course you can substitute for garlic powder, but I did have fresh garlic, so I'm going to use that. You need 4 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce, 3 tablespoons of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 tablespoon of sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of sweet chili sauce, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now let's talk about substitutions. Obviously, if you want, you can substitute a much simpler sauce here, like the one that I normally make with the soy sauce, the sesame oil, and the brown sugar. And white sugar is fine if that's all you have. Also, you could add a simple vinegar to that, and that would make a nice sauce. The recipe called for 2 tablespoons of sweet chili sauce, and I just happen to have some. However, I don't really think that it added too much to the sauce. I really couldn't taste any heat at all, and there was already plenty of sweetness with the sugar and the honey. Here are some substitution ideas for you. I'm just going to tell you right now that this sauce is amazing and it's worth all the extra effort. I like this so much that I made a double batch after this, and I stored a bottle of the sauce in the fridge. This is so good that you're going to want to put this on everything, and it's so much better than any bottled sauce that I've ever had. This feels like a very long recipe, but you can make the sauce up a week in advance, and this cuts the cooking time down drastically. I had a green onion that I sliced up, and then I showed you earlier the broccoli that I have. I get this big 2-pound bag for $3.18 at Sam's Club, and this lasts me a couple weeks. For the sauce, you just let it boil until it condenses, just a couple minutes, and then add in the protein. And I added in the pork here. I let it glaze each morsel and then plated it with some rice and broccoli on the side. I tried a bite of this and it was delicious. I gave this to my son and he loved it also. I think this would be a great sauce for ribs or whole pieces of chicken like drumsticks. For my lunch, I added the green onions into the sauce and then added the tofu. For the broccoli, I just lightly pan-fried it and then topped it with a few drops of sesame oil, just enough for flavor. If you watch my channel regularly, you probably already know that this chili garlic sauce is my all-time favorite condiment. Unfortunately, this product is no longer on the store shelves. The company said last summer's drought in Mexico caused a shortage of chilies, which is hampering their production of this sauce, along with sriracha and sambal oleg. So they make all 3 of those sauces, and those sauces have been nowhere to be found. I've been desperate to find something similar. I've driven to so many stores. So far, this Lee Kum Kee chili garlic sauce is the closest I've come, and it's not near as good to me, but it's the next best thing. If you have a better idea for me, please do let me know in the comments. Honestly, I never thought this was going to affect me so bad, but it is. I love that condiment, and I use it on everything. Okay, I just want to say that this tofu is so good with this glaze. And again, I like that sauce so much that I made a jar of it and I put it in my fridge for future use. For my final meal, I'm making pork belly lettuce wraps. This meal was inspired simply because I wanted to try these sesame leaves. They're also called perilla leaves. I've been eyeing these at H Mart for at least the past year, and I thought it was time for me to try them. I read that they have a flavor somewhere between that of basil and mint. They're used frequently in Korean cooking. They're used in stir fries, in soups, in wraps, and I also believe they're pickled. I also like this dish because we're using pork belly, which is very inexpensive. I picked this up for less than $7 at H Mart, but you can get this less expensive at Walmart, and a little bit goes a long way, so I'm only going to be using about a third of this package. And I'm going to be trying Korean peppers for the first time, but obviously if you want to, you can use a jalapeno here. And I've got the rest of the ingredients here that we'll be using. I've got a red leaf lettuce to wrap these in, but any lettuce that you can wrap in will work fine. I already washed the perilla leaves yesterday, and these have been in my fridge already for a couple days, and they had already started to kind of brown on the outside, so I'm not sure if it's my fridge, but I do tend to have to use things fairly quickly. So you may want to keep that in mind if you end up getting these. These are going to be the fillings for the first wraps that I make. I have onion and garlic, sliced Korean peppers, sesame oil with salt, and some sauce, which is ssamjang, and then I have some lettuce and sesame leaves. Ssamjang is a Korean soybean paste that already has garlic, sesame oil, red chilies, all of that stuff already in there, but you can just use whatever your favorite Asian hot sauce is, or you can skip it altogether. I'm showing a gochujang sauce as well, and a chili garlic sauce that would work. But you could also use the sesame sauce that I made in the last recipe. That would be delicious here. I'm just going to quickly fry my onion and garlic. And I want to make sure not to let the garlic burn. So this is just about perfect. I'm going to take this out right now. As for the onion, I'm just going to lightly brown it on one side, and then I'll pull that out as well. I'm using the red leaf lettuce, and I've removed part of the stem on the back so that it will fold up nicer when I do the roll, but you could really use any lettuce that you can roll up or whatever's on the best sale. I'm going to layer this with the sesame leaf, just a little bit of rice, and this is actually a brown rice that I got from H Mart. And then I'm going to take a piece of the pork belly and dip it into the sesame oil mixture. And then I'm going to add just a little of the ssamjang, or you can add whatever kind of hot sauce you might want. And then I'll add just a small piece of the onion and garlic. And I do wish I had more garlic because that garlic was really tasty on this. And then I'm adding one of the Korean peppers. I tasted these Korean peppers already, and they're much less spicy than jalapenos. They don't have very much heat at all, if any. Then I'm just going to roll this up and take a bite. And friends, I have to say, this was really good. I like dipping the pork belly in that sesame oil. It has such a nice, strong flavor when you bite into it. But that pork belly is so good here. And I actually don't even eat pork, but I wanted to try this so that I could tell you if it was good or not. And it is. The sesame leaf has kind of a minty flavor, but not as strong as mint. So if you didn't have an Asian grocery store near you, you could always buy mint leaves. It adds some freshness against the fattiness of the meat. It's hard to explain, it's just a perfect balance of flavors. I love the community aspect of this dinner, where you could make this with all of your toppings, and then your family just gathers around the table and assembles their leaves together. This would also be an exciting meal to serve at a party, and you could have 2 protein options, or maybe even 3. Maybe 2 for meat eaters, and then, like a tofu option. I think the pork belly is probably the most perfect ingredient here because it has the right balance of fattiness, it's chewy, and it's a little bit salty, and then you've got that sesame flavor. It is so good. And I think that this is a perfect recipe for summer. I've seen a lot of people take 1 large bite with these lettuce wraps, but I needed about 4 bites for this. I think I'd like to try this again, maybe with butter lettuce, so that my bites are slightly smaller. And the lettuce ratio to the other ingredients is slightly less, but I do also like the idea of just buying whatever's the cheapest price that's going to work. This is actually a very inexpensive meal. And I did like the tofu. I think the flavor of the pork belly was slightly better. Actually, it was a lot better, but I do prefer tofu. I also think portobello mushrooms that are grilled would be really good here, or there's lots of different kinds of mushrooms that would actually work here as well. I watched this Korean YouTuber named Mangchi make a sesame sauce with her sliced green onions, so that's what I'm doing here. It called for some sesame oil, sesame seeds, brown sugar, soy sauce, and a little bit of red pepper, and I'm just using the togarashi I have because that's all I have on hand, and it was really tasty. However, for me, it wasn't any more tasty than dipping the protein into the sesame oil mixture. So I do think next time I try this, I'll add a little bit of rice vinegar to it because I think for me that might be the ticket. And I do like the way this looks, so I would consider making this maybe for a party, but I wouldn't do both the sesame oil and this. I was thinking of all of the toppings that would be nice in these wraps, and I added some shredded carrots to the green onions, and for my last wrap, I made a low-carb wrap. So I just skipped the rice, even though it's really not much rice anyway, but this was delicious like that also. So for my viewers that are eating low-carb, or that are diabetic, I think that this would be an option. This recipe has made me discover how much I like dipping things in sesame oil, and also using cooked garlic slices in these wraps is genius. It has so much flavor, and that's something new for me. I do love lettuce wraps, and I eat them a lot in the summer when it's hot. I enjoyed this style of wrap, and I hope you guys will too. I want to thank MSMK Pro Cookware for sponsoring today's video. I loved using these pans, and it made cooking today's recipes so easy. It's amazing how much fun cooking is when you have the right tools. I'll have a 20% off coupon for you in the description area of my video. I hope you liked today's recipes. Thank you so much for watching my video. Here are 2 other videos that I think you might like. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.